Hey everyone, so today I thought I would lighten the mood and talk about Hitler. Of course, I'm just kidding. I already did the reading, so I'm just going to be talking about what came up to me for me when I was in meditation doing the reading on Hitler. So I'm just going to go ahead and start at the beginning. So what I was first seeing was obviously there's a lot of anger with Hitler, specifically anger towards other people within society. What I was surprised to see was it wasn't just anger towards, the minorities that he would obviously be associated with hating, but he was also angry towards his own culture, like just people around him. I don't know, maybe not specifically his family, but people who are related to him within his ethnicity. Um, Specifically, he was angry at society and just like the shortcomings of other people, and he seemed to feel that there was a lack of organization within society. People were just kind of, loose, not really together, and he really had this scope of detail. Like he was really able to hone in on details and see the precision and things where other people were just kind of like clowns as how he saw other people. They're just not really even there. Like, what are they even doing? Like, they're not taking things seriously. That's basically his general outlook on society. Um, and he felt that what society needed, what humanity needed, was more discipline and more seriousness. And he felt that he was that, like he was able to be that for people, for society. Um, he was just kind of sick and tired of the way that things were going, just the lack of tightness within, the efficiency. Like people, things could be so much better, is the way that he saw it, and so he had a lot of these convictions towards people and society, and he felt like he needed to be the authority, and because of his convictions, because of how he you know came across as a teacher here to reshape society, people saw him as an authority and people listened to him because of that. And also what was coming up was this, it's almost like a religious vibe, like he's almost like a preacher, and he's full of passion. This is how he was seen by the public. This is why the public listened to him, and because he had a big sense of purpose to him, and so that's what people saw in him, um, and it kind of evoked like a emotional, you know, passionate kind of response in people where they're, like this is like almost like he was like God or something, like he was a prophet or something here to enlighten the world, and it was like very heart opening for people. Like their heart chakra would be wide open to this, and also I'm just seeing this just now is also their crown chakra, which is their connection to higher self as well as what people kind of know to be true. And so like he was kind of hijacking that in some sense in their heart chakra. And so a lot of people talk about how you need to open your heart chakra, and that's true, but there's also a danger to having your heart chakra too easily controllable, and well, this is a perfect example of that. And so he was able to really tap into people's heart chakras and give them that sense of, like, I want to say brotherly love, but I'm seeing a lot of women involved in this. It's not brotherly, it's more like as if there's a divine purpose behind this all. That's what people were seeing in him, at least. When I tune into him, he's very strict. Although I'm seeing there was this sense of danger to women, that he would kind of attract them to him with his charisma of being so, full of purpose, everything that I just said. And then he would get very strict and they would kind of have to like cower away and like get away from him because he is just like, things should be this specific way. He's very disciplined, very much about rules, and very very detailed, very detailed. And so if things weren't exactly right, he would like raise his fist, And so I'm seeing that being not really working out for him in that sense with women. Um, Even though he was very much so about these strict rules, there was some leeway, contradictions within these rules as he went on, but it's like the rules change, I guess you could say. And the reason why he's able to justify this is because even though he was very specific about things, he didn't see it as those things really being the issue. It's more that people need to be organized, people need to be like managed, people need to be guided, and so like they need a system, they need like this strict, you know, way of conduct because people are like sheep to him. And so even if the rules changed over time and may have contradicted each other, that's not the point. And so that's how he was able to kind of justify everything, even if it didn't add up over time. So he had bad relations to women earlier on in his life. Um, he was very much so male oriented. If you didn't know, he was definitely running a lot more male energy than female energy and couldn't really relate to female energy. Um, Definitely run by rage, and it was like his whole life there's something under his skin, and that was kind of his driving impulse that kind of shaped his personality throughout his whole life. Although I do see that once his anger is released, like such as once he kind of gets what he wants within like the wars and like bombs or whatever it was, this like kind of like sense of something being under the skin would be replaced with this very pragmatic attitude where it was just immediate shift from like kind of like rage and like we need to do this straight into like a chess game and like very detailed, thought out planning, lots of defense. It's not just offense, but there's lots of defense involved as well, like lots. Um, thing is anger. Well, I kind of said this already, but a lack of seriousness in society. We thought that people were not, tight enough in society. It was not a tight knit enough culture, society. People were kind of playing around, not being very precise. He always felt like he could do better. And see him as a kid, and this is probably more symbolic than literal, but I saw him as a kid, and it's like he wanted to invest money, but he wasn't able to do it for whatever societal reasons. And so he looked into the future. He wanted to, invest this money. He's like, oh, I could do this. I could do this better than other people. And he saw other people kind of half-assing it, not really doing it that great. And he was watching them and he's like, I could do it better than they could do it, but I'm not old enough. And then as he got older, society didn't really give him the chance to be able to invest his money. Although I don't know that investing his money is literal. I think this is more of a symbol, symbolically representing like a bigger picture of what's going on, if that makes sense. So he saw himself as being better at doing this, but not ever being able to be given the opportunity to do it. And he kind of had this developed over time, this internal like built up pressure of him being like, this is how it should be done. If only I could do it, but I can't. And so he just kind of got his convictions kind of grew stronger and stronger within him. So I saw later on in life he kind of resorted to alternative means, like not quite doing exactly what everyone else is doing, um, kind of living, you know, doing what he can do to get by, and like coming up, being creative with his ways of making money. I'm seeing a lot of creativity with how he gets by. His general lifestyle becomes very creative and kind of like not off the grid, but kind of like under the grid, if that makes sense. Like kind of not what most people would think of. Like he was very creative in his lifestyle. But I'm also saying that in some sense, in some regard, he was robbed. And I don't know if this was literally like he literally got robbed by people. He might have actually gotten robbed, and or I think it might have been more so like a societal situation, like something changed in society, or like things just didn't work out for him, and he ended up, you know, losing all his money, and or if it wasn't his money, it was just him losing his ability to stand on his own 2 feet within society the way that he wanted to, and he was just kind of reduced to, being desperate again and not being able to get by and being at the very bottom of society. And he felt a lot of revenge, or he wanted revenge. And because of this, he kind of advertised this like revolution, um, but mostly just like this things are unjust, like what a lot of protesters do nowadays, where they're just saying like this is unjust, this is not right, you know. And so he's really speaking that to the masses and advertising that. And so he attracted, first I'm saying he attracted the attention of older men of a like high class who are kind of behind the scenes in the shadows, so to speak, and they're kind of into occult sort of stuff, but more like mythological, like studying mythology and things of that nature. They're like older men, kind of. They might not be single, but they're more so act as if they were single. They're just interested in very abstract concepts and the occult, and I actually saw a little bit of like magic and like kind of like not so much rituals, but like maybe being more interested in studying rituals and like philosophy, things like that. So, anyways, he attracted the attention of some of the upper. Well, they're not really upper class because they're kind of like behind the scenes, actually, but they were upper class. So it's not like the upper class that you would think of. So, anyways, they admired his stance or what he was saying, but they did not admire his like rage and what he wanted to do, like his plans of action. However, they did kind of take him under their wing in some regards and kind of stabilized him so that he was able to continue on, in the sense of stabilizing him. Like, he had support, he had moral support, he had, the almost justification, I guess you could say, even though they weren't really part of his plans, his future plans, they didn't vibe with that. So after that, he got a lot of attention from the public. And of course, this is just what I'm reading. So I don't know if this is what, is out there. within the history, but this is the how I was seeing it. Um, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. I'm seeing the attention of the public eventually following him and supporting him and taking on more of that like rage, that shock value, I guess you could say, that really like spawned his public image. Um, and as that happened, it kind of solidified his philosophy, and these wealthy philosophical occult type people kind of helped solidify this philosophy in his mind, which is very abstract. And I saw him as being like a writer and a thinker. I guess you could say a philosopher at one point during this. And um, and so these older men, they were interested in Hitler. They kind of took him under their wing on some regard and kind of started teaching him their way of their school of thought, I guess. Um, and they wanted to use him more for financial gain or to shift things around in society. Like the way they saw it was there was a stagnation within society, and Hitler was like the spokesperson who would be able to like break up this stagnation and get some movement going in the direction that they want. Um, I'm seeing this as being kind of behind the scenes. They're not. Oh, I mean, what they're saying about Hitler is kind of behind Hitler's back on some level. Like Hitler didn't know like exactly what they were saying and exactly why they were supporting him. He just kind of thought that they liked what he was saying, but it was more complex than that. It was more strategic for them with kind of using Hitler's mouthpiece to kind of break up the stagnation of society and kind of get it flowing in a different direction. That was their intention. Didn't exactly go exactly how they wanted. Um, but I do see, well, like specifically what I mean by that is it didn't go in the direction they wanted because they weren't really trying to push him to the extent that he went with like the whole trying to take over the world and everything. They just saw it as a like kind of like a revolutionary, like people need to change the system. Um, but he took it much further than that. I do see them, this group of older men, um, and there's something about a phoenix symbol, and the phoenix could be related to the eagle, which could be why the Hitler symbol had the eagle. The eagle's similar to the United States, but the eagle's looking the opposite direction. The classic symbol with the eagle on top of the swastika. And that may be related to this phoenix. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I do definitely see that there is a phoenix symbol associated with these older men and this like occult type of mythological interest of theirs, and they're kind of interested in like things of magic and kind of think of themselves as magicians on some level, and they're so abstract that they were kind of beyond ethics on some level. Like when you become so abstract that you're doing things for such abstract reasons that it doesn't like the details don't really matter anymore. It's kind of like, oh, well, like this could be like morally wrong, but it's like the symbol of it, the abstract purpose of it, kind of overrules the maybe more like realistic situation going on, and so you're able to kind of overlook details or overlook, you know, human rights, you could say. So that effect definitely affected Hitler, or kind of solidified where he was already at, but that kind of affected him on some levels, what I'm saying. Although, as time went on, Hitler left that mindset more and more and went more towards the general public, what the general public was supporting him for, which was more of like the shock value. At least that's the way I'm saying it. I don't know if that's what history books say, but that's what I'm saying, that the general public was interested in him because of his, desire to take revenge. So later on, Hitler kind of broke apart from that group of older men, occult type stuff, and he was kind of more like a one-man band, so to speak. And the people who were with him kind of were actually trying to not destroy him, but they were kind of plotting to stop him. Not like destroy him, just tone it down a little bit. That's what they were actually secretly trying to orchestrate behind his back after he kind of went off and did his own thing, such as waging war. So he had these expert plans in his mind that he had, developed over the time that he before he was obviously doing it, and so it was like he was manifesting all these things all at once, and as he's doing it, waging all these wars, etc., there's some doubt that takes over his mind, so he feels a little doubt, but this doubt is overshadowed and justified by his religious convictions, in the sense of, and it's not so much like the mythological kind of occult stuff that was coming from those older men, although it is and it isn't. It's kind of like half and half, but it became something bigger than that. It kind of became his own personal religion, I guess you could say, and he really saw himself as a spiritual leader. So to him, this was a spiritual undertaking. So part of this was about not giving in to, what he viewed as their power over him, their like ability, the enemy's ability to make him feel doubt, and it was like a spiritual, mission for him to kind of push out any sympathy he had for them, because he saw it as their control over him and his weakness, almost as if they were like controlling his mind, is kind of the way that he's seeing it actually. So during this time of doubt, he would also be reassured by those around him who were working with him, who he had, rallied to his side. He became very dependent on other people to kind of help carry him along. He became a little bit depressed. I'm seeing very intoxicated over time. And this intoxication, I'm just seeing him getting like really just like drunk, basically. This intoxication just kind of made him less pragmatic, even though he was still very pragmatic, but it made him more just like on this fuel to just destroy and just keep doing what he's doing. And there's this sense of communion with him and the people he's got around him, this sense of brotherly love that keeps him going through it all. I'm seeing this, he becomes very, very ungrounded with this intoxication, and he's just pushing forward like he's just drunk, and he's just like, we're gonna win this, we're gonna keep going, and it's like he's kind of starting to ignore the details. I'm also seeing him ignoring some peace deals. I'm seeing there were some offers that were coming his way. I don't know if these were like literal offers or more just like energetically he was pushing away anything, but I did see like, you know, offers coming to him and him ignoring them and be like, no, like we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna compromise. And that was somewhat associated with this drunkenness of, thinking he can just kind of take over the world, and there's not going to be any chance of him losing. He just has to push harder and push harder. So as things started going downhill and he started, having kind of a wake-up call to all this, he saw himself more and more as a victim, and he felt like he just needed to take care of himself. And so I'm seeing he went into like some sort of hiding, and didn't want to be in the public eye. And the war became somewhat of a fake war to him. Like, he wasn't really so invested in the war anymore after a certain point, but he kept the war going just because he didn't know what else to do, and it was kind of a way to distract everyone from what he was really doing, which was he was kind of getting ready to go into hiding, and he was not investing most of the effort or resources into the war or furthering the war, but more towards his own self-comfort and future plans of surviving. I do see him becoming more protective of women as he was able to be more protective of himself. He became more protective of women and becoming more interested in family life. He continued this war regardless, though, because he felt that people are just kind of stupid and like sheep, and like they're just gonna do what they're gonna do, so might as well just let them basically kill each other off, like, whatever. That's how he saw it. I'm seeing him going underground, having secret locations with family, and he's using this as he's pretending that this is all part of the strategy within the war. Like, he's going to have these escape routes with his family, and he's going to somehow use this strategically to help fight the war, but he's actually just doing it for his own personal gain. And so he was kind of keeping that to himself, that he wasn't necessarily having faith in the war anymore, or winning the war. And then at one point I'm seeing there's like a problem with his family or female sex life, I guess you could say, and he's more by himself. And he kind of gets more back into the war plans, but the war is lost. So when I ask if he committed suicide, I see him being too self-righteous to actually commit suicide. And with all these plans being guided or being built up, it seemed like he was planning this escape before, anything, before the war was even lost. And so when I asked if he killed himself, I saw a picture of him with a gun, and he's shooting the gun above his head. And then I just see things kind of getting blurry, like he's just intoxicated. And he's just getting drunk, messed up somehow. So the sense of, fighting the good fight, as he would see it, never really fully left him, but this sense of drunkenness and hiding, and this anger were just always there with him, never really leaving him. I do see that there was a female presence that came back into his life, but it was never the same. It was never as great as it was before. He was always isolated with like people guarding him in some sort of fortress type scenario. Just lots of intoxication is what I'm seeing primarily for him. Um, so the war, the idea of continuing this war and, wanting to continue, like, I've heard people talk about the potential Fourth Reich and whatnot. I'm seeing him kind of like in his mind playing with that idea, but part of him knew that it was over, but he couldn't really admit that it was over, and so like outwardly he would continue the plans, even though inwardly he wasn't really thinking that they were going to work. And so to him, it was kind of more like a chess game. It was more like a mental exercise. It was just like, that was kind of all he had left. So he just didn't even know what else to do. It was just that's what he was at. That's kind of where his mind was stuck. I don't ever see that he felt any guilt or ever felt, shame for what he had done. I just see him being very spiteful till, for the rest of his life, just full of spite about, not, how things didn't work out for him. Seemed to be from, the beginning of his life to the end of life, spiteful for how things did not work out for him because he was just always seeing himself as the victim of society. It seems to be where this all kind of really spawned from, was that perception of being a victim of society and that justifying these acts. So when I ask who was supporting him within his ability to, you know, live on after the war, which is what I'm getting that happened. I'm getting that this group that I was talking about, these older men, this, of course, it's like it's not like the same men. It's kind of like a group. They're all very, very similar. They're all, I almost want to call it a cult. Like, not a cult. It was a cult, but it's also a cult. Like, not one word, like someone who's in a cult. um, and so I'm seeing them having a lot of power over the world on like a, you know, behind the scenes level. And I'm seeing them helping him, even though they're not, for what he was doing, but it was like he was still kind of like became part of their like brotherhood, and so therefore they couldn't like abandon him, and he kind of took on their ideas and philosophy, so they couldn't really give that up to him, or they couldn't really let that go, so they stayed with him. So I'm seeing a lot of underground networks supporting him, special branches of world governments as well. Of course, this is compartmentalized in the sense that it's not like a full government, but it's like a little tiny piece of the government. Like, the government isn't working as a whole, but there's just like a few individuals or like a special units force or something like that where these people are in on it, kind of helping Hitler survive. And this has to do with the reason for this is because they made deals with him in the past, and they kind of have to. They've been helping him out, so like obviously, if he gets discovered, they might get discovered as well. They have to kind of keep this secret going. So there's deals they made, compromises they made, in order for their own well-being during all the chaos going on with the wars. World War II, that would be. Um, and so this was partly for their countries and partly for them as an individual, as their personal benefits, and kind of what they needed to do to survive is the way that they were thinking about it, how to be successful in life, because it seemed to be, you know, that's how things were headed, is what they thought, and they were trying to play their cards the right way to make sure that, you know, they get in the door, they don't get left out, they don't miss the train, so to speak. So when I tap into Hitler as a spirit after death, after passing away, I see his spirit not really wanting to grow, not really wanting to kind of face everything, not really wanting to accept, you know, wrongdoing on any level. And so it's kind of just stagnant, not really interested in coming back to Earth, reincarnating or whatever, you know, not really interested in doing that game again. He's, you know, because that would imply that he would have to kind of give up everything where he's at. There's like this sense of stubbornness. However, I do see he has a plan, which is kind of contradictory, but on some weird level, his plan is to wait slowly over time in this more like astral state of being, not in a body. Things move faster in a body. You can learn faster in a body. That's why people, you know, are incarnated into a body, because you learn lessons faster this way than being in spirit, which is, you know, being like a spirit, the astral realm. It's harder to learn lessons. Things are less, you know, materialized, to put it simply. And so I see over time, long amounts of time, his spirit becomes more neutral, and that's his plan, to just kind of hang out there and allow things to slowly heal over time, so he can kind of grow as a spirit, as a soul. Um, and one of the ways he's planning on doing this is just by coming in contact with traveling souls in the astral realm that, you know, he may interact with and grow from, and, you know, learn on a spirit level. So I'm going to go ahead and end this reading. This went on a lot longer than I intended, so if you made it to the very end, thanks for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and have a great day. Take it easy.